started. So today is Mindset Monday, Ruby tells me. So let's talk a little bit about mindset. And I was thinking about this as we were just sitting there and I was just writing down some thoughts. I start from this perspective. If I were trying to teach a child how to have a powerful mindset, well, first of all, let me back up. Is it important to have a powerful mindset? And the answer obviously is what?
Yes.
I believe that it's more than important. It is everything. If you think about that, I don't care what arena of your life, whether it's in a relationship or dealing with your own personal health, mental, physical, emotional, or in the business of real estate, foundationally, the single most important thing is the way in which we what?
Think.
Period. Because everything that you do comes from that. I believe that those who are more powerful in terms of their mindset tend to be more resourceful. When you have a great, powerful mindset, you become more resourceful. I want you to think about that. In a market like it is today, dramatically different than a year ago, say yes.
Yes.
Right? Different challenges, a lot more challenging today in many ways, yes?
Yeah.
Right? And so you think about that. Those who have a powerful mindset, instead of giving up and saying, well, I just simply have to wait until the market what? Gets better. They say, well, I need to figure out what I need to do and how I need to respond in today's market in order to get the results that I want. You were going to say something. Say it.
I was going to say it gets better.
It gets better. That's right. Yeah, because here's the challenge, Ruby. We don't have any control over what's happening out there, but we have control over what's happening where? The problem is that most people don't recognize that. And they'll wake up and they'll have this poor mindset and they believe, well, if that's the way I feel today, that's the sort of day I'm going to have. It's an apathy. They just simply give up. They cede control to the way in which they feel. That's what the average person does. And that's why the average person will simply wait for things to change and say, well, I guess I'm just going to have to wait until things improve, until somebody gets in the White House or somebody gets out of the White House, until something happens in the marketplace. When interest rates go down, inventories go up, then the business will get what for me? It'll get better. Well, the challenge with that is we don't control that, but what we do control is this. The problem is most people, Kelly, don't recognize that, or they're not willing to take the responsibility because it's not what?
Easy.
It isn't easy. It's not easy. It really isn't. Because if it were easy, everybody would what? And everybody would have a powerful what? And here's the good news. Do you want the good news? Say yes.
Yes.
The good news is you guys are in the right place, the right company, the company that shares the right message. You're of the right mindset to say, I believe that I can change it. I'm in control of that. That's the great news. See, most people see control and say, well, I guess I'll just simply have to wait. And the good news is you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait for interest rates to go down. You don't have to wait for the inventory to go up. You don't have to wait for the next election cycle. None of that has to happen. All you simply have to do is take what?
Control.
Take control, take responsibility. And when you do that, you become more resourceful. And that's what success is all about. In anything that we do, it's about, there are challenges. And here's the problem. See, victims have problems. Victors have challenges. What's the difference? Well, problems are typically things that we don't have any control over. We don't have solutions to. But when we have challenges and we're a victor, we have the mindset that all we simply have to do is to find the what to the challenge. The answer, the solution. And we find the answer, the solution, then, meaning we become more resourceful. We don't stay wallowed in or stuck in our what?
Pity party.
In our problems or challenges, right? We have the resourcefulness to get out of those situations. Yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I wrote down a couple of things. The number one rule, and this is what I would say to a child if I were teaching a young person how to maintain and to build a positive mindset. The number one rule is the story we tell ourselves. Number one, above all else. The story that we tell ourselves. So here's a question for you. I know it's early. What time is it? It's 7:52 almost. I know it's early, but think about this. What story have you told yourself so far this morning? Just be honest with yourself. What sort of story have you told yourself? Was it a story that emboldened you? Was it a story that helped you become more confident, more powerful? Or was it a story that did exactly the opposite of that? Because here's the truth. Either one can happen, yes or yes.
Yes.
The cool thing again is that you're in what? Control of that. See, you're the author of that story every single day. So I wrote that down. The number one rule is the story we tell ourselves. Now, why is that the case? Why is it that the story we tell ourselves is the most important thing?
You believe it.
That's the one you listen to the most.
That's the answer. Say it out loud. Like so everybody can hear you, including online.
That's the one we listen to the most.
Because that is the one we listen to the most. Because how often and how long does that story play itself out?
Multiple times a day.
Constantly.
Yeah.
No, it's constant. There's never reprieve from it. It's constant. You simply cannot get away from either your conscious or your what conscious mind? Subconscious mind. It is the conversation that you have consistently, 24/7. I want you to think about that. So those of us in the know, because we're in the know, we'll get online and we'll listen to MP3s or get on YouTube, or if we have an older car where you can pop in a CD, you'll pop that in and you'll listen to a positive message, right? Because what we want to try to do is redirect our mind to a positive what? To a positive mindset, to a positive message. See, those of us that are in the know, we understand that. The problem is that if we're not doing that constantly, then we're left to what happens in a subconscious level, which is 24/7. And the question is, what's happening there? See, for most people, that message is a positive or negative. Okay, it's obvious. It is. Say it.
Negative.
It's negative. It is. I know that that's the case, definitely without a doubt, with those who are average, but even those who are above average or like this group, extraordinary, I can still tell you that the vast majority of the time, that subconscious message, you think it's positive or negative, gang? Let's be honest. It is negative. And that's why it's so important that every single day, multiple times a day, we are listening to and watching and reading positive what? Positive messages. So I wrote that down. The most important conversation we have every single day is the conversation with ourselves. Why? Because it is 24/7, to Kelly's point. 24/7. So we have to take the responsibility to recognize that, man, if it's 24/7, I better do whatever I can to direct the direction of that conversation. Yes or yes?
Yes.
I've got to take control of that. So the question is, how do I do that? It's the 5 things I talk about all the time. It's what I read. It's what I what? What I watch. What I what? What I listen to. What I participate in, like morning Ascent, or like the Everest Coaching Summit on the 18th, right? The things I participate in. And then finally what?
Who I hang with.
People I associate with. That's exactly right, Brendan. And it is no surprising to me. It is so interesting. And this is a great observation. You do it as well. These 2 ladies are really good at this. I know that when somebody is in a great frame of mind or is conscious in attempting to be or to maintain a great frame of mindset, they will always look outside of themselves and look towards other people. You know the 2 people that I most consistently get texts from asking, how are you doing? These 2 right here. Seriously. It's true. Are you too surprised by that? You shouldn't be. Because what is interesting is that anytime that I see a Brenda Lee or Ruby, do you know the number one thing that I think of when I see them? If I'm not around them and I just think about Ruby or Brenda Lee, do you know the number one thing that I see in my mind?
They care about you.
That's not what I see.
Oh.
I know that, but you know what I see? Do you know what I see? I see big, pearly white smiles. Now, it's difficult to be angry, upset, anxious, and have a what?
Positive mindset.
Have a smile.
Smile, yeah.
Right? Think about the last time that you were angry, upset, anxious, and you had a big, beautiful, beaming, pearly white smile. Right? It's true. So what I know is that if we take control of that, we pay attention to those things, what we read, what we watch, what we listen to, what we participate in, and what we associate with, the people we associate with, that on average, that's going to allow us to improve our mindset and ultimately our what? Our story, our narrative. And that's what's most important, because that we have control over. Yes or yes? Okay. So I wrote down these 4 things that I want you to write down. As it relates to confidence, building a powerful mindset. And it isn't in any particular order, but these are the 4 things that I wrote down. Number 1, if you want to build and grow a positive mindset, have integrity. Have integrity. Integrity of the standards that you know that you should live by. Maybe not the ones that you're necessarily living by, but the ones that you know you should be living by. If I said to you, for example, everyone in the room and those of you on Zoom, if I said to you, what is the single most important thing that you can do on a daily basis in real estate to ensure your success? What is the answer above all else?
Communication,
Have integrity.
have integrity.
Prospecting. That is the number one thing that you can do to ensure your success in real estate is to talk to people. That's the answer. So we know that's the number one rule, right? If you want to be successful in real estate, then talk to a lot of what? But see, if you're not doing that, even though you may not be doing that, you know that that is the rule, right? You recognize that that's the standard, yes? And if you're not living by that standard, then how do you feel about yourself? Maybe not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level. How do you feel about yourself? You know that you're living below what? Your standards. And when we live below our standards, how do we feel about ourselves?
Feel good.
Guilty as charged. Right? We feel guilty. And we feel guilty. Is that an emotion that's empowering or disempowering?
Can be
Yeah.
either.
It can, right? Depending upon what it is. Yes. But only think about that. So if we know the standards by which we should be living, whether it's in a relationship, having integrity there, or it's with our health, mental, physical, emotional, or it's in the business of real estate, and we're living within integrity, within those standards that we know are going to get us great results, how do we feel about ourselves? Great, amazing. How could you not? But when we are living below those standards, how do we feel?
Negative.
Negative, anxious. And we feel negative or anxious. How do we conduct ourselves? How do we talk about ourselves? What's that narrative? What's that story?
Negative.
It's negative. And you know the formula, right? Negative thoughts lead to negative what?
Thoughts.
Action.
Or.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Because thoughts create emotions. Emotions create what? You said it. Well, I heard you say it. Actions. And actions create our what?
Results.
Our results, our reality. Yeah. It's really, as Jim Rohn says, it's really simple, but it's not what? It's not easy. See, it's not easy to take responsibility for the way that we feel every single moment and say, okay, what do I have to do? It's like taking a bath. When we get dirty, we have to do what? We got to take a what? Release the shower, whatever you take, right? And if you don't do it consistently, you start to what? You start to stink. That's what Zig Ziglar talked about. You know, most people would do a lot of stinking thinking. Well, every single day you had to work on cleaning your what? Your mindset. Let's get rid of that stinking thinking. So identify, okay, what are my standards as it relates to my relationships, my relationship with myself, with my creator, with every other human being, whether it's my significant other, my children, my grandchildren, whomever they may be. What are my standards? And am I living by those what? By those standards. And when we can say confidently, yes, I am, we feel what about ourselves? We feel confident, we feel good, because we know we're living by our what?
Standards.
Pretty simple. So integrity, number one. Number two, clarity. Clarity. You know, one of the things that we all did, hopefully at the beginning of the year or at the end of last year, was create a business plan and a set of what? Set of goals. Clear about what do I want my year to look like? Who do I want to become? What sort of life do I want to live? The good book says, in so many words, without a vision, the people will what? Perish. I remember my former wife saying to me one time, she was reading the book written by Napoleon Hill, what's it, the devil?
Outwitting the devil.
Outwitting the Devil. I remember she was in the master bedroom and she was sitting on the floor leaning against the wall and she was reading the book. I'd given it to her. I found it at a yard sale. And it was a book that was published. This one was published back in the 50s. And she was reading it and she all of a sudden she stopped and she said, oh my gosh. And I said, what? And she said, I just realized something. I said, what's that? She said, I just realized that every personal development book that I have ever read or that you've ever talked about is founded in one book and one source only. And I said, what's that? And she said, the Bible. I said, isn't that interesting? And I never really thought about it. I said, but you know what? You're right. The Bible says that those without a vision will what? They'll perish. Wasn't that true? You think about that. When you know where you are, where you want to go, and you create a pathway, even if the pathway isn't exactly, it doesn't end up being that way, but at least you have some certainty. As these are the steps that I need to take, even if you have to get off that path to get to where you want to go, right? But at least you know, you have clarity. Do you not act with greater self-confidence? Of course you do. But it's when you have a lack of understanding about what you want and who you want to become and the process that you have to engage in to do that, that's when we start to feel what mentally? Weak. And you look at people out there who have a lack of vision of what they want and who they want to become. And they're just simply in what mode? Maslow talked about it. Down at the very bottom, what are they at? It's simply survival. And when you're in the survival mode, you're not confident. You're panicked constantly. You're worried about just simply getting to the next dollar so that you can provide sustenance, gas in the tank to get from A to B. When you get well beyond that, then of course, those aren't your focuses. Those aren't your concerns. Yes or yes?
Yes.
So having clarity about what you want, what your goals are, but also clarity of process. The more clear you are about anything that you have to do, the more what you act, the more confident you act. Think about that. Think about the process of prospecting, the process of presenting a listing presentation, a listing conversation. The more clear you are about how to engage in that conversation, the more confidently you what? You present. Isn't that a beautiful thing? With clarity, Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. With clarity, there is what? Power. The more clear you are about anything, the more powerfully you will act. And when there is greater uncertainty, then of course you will act with less confidence. And when you act with less confidence, you act with less intention. When you act with less intention, then of course you're going to be more tepid, more uncertain, and you're not going to get the results that you want. The great thing about momentum is you keep building, and you keep building, you keep building. And when challenges come up, it doesn't matter. You have so much momentum that you can do what? You can blast right through those challenges. That's called confidence. That's the beautiful thing about it. Yes? It's an amazing thing. So clarity, process and goals. Number 3, Brenda Lee already mentioned that she talked about participation. Participate in the right things. The things that will build your mindset, not tear them down. Think about that. Could we all, if we were honest with ourselves, say that in the last 7 days, we probably engaged in some activities, did something that actually tore down our mindset as opposed to build it up? Did you by chance watch the news? Come on, did you watch the news? Did you read the news? Okay. My suspicion is that if you watched or read the news, the article or the topic that they talked about, right, was it positive or negative in terms of its message?
Negative.
Yeah. So let's be honest. In the last 7 days, did we all do something that was counterproductive or counter reactive to what we're trying to accomplish? Yes. Right? So the more conscious we are about this and say, wait a minute, I got to take a step back and I've got to make sure that I'm participating in things that build me up, not tear me down. Because there's so much stimuli out there, especially in today's world. Remember when we were kids, how much simpler the world was. If somebody wanted to send you mail, it wasn't email, and it wasn't in today's world. I mean, email's passe. I mean, if you're sending an email to communicate with somebody, you should probably, get to the 21st century because it's text now, right? Or it's Snapchat or whatever else that they're doing. But the interesting thing is that when I was a kid, if you wanted to communicate with somebody, it was either on the phone in the house, which was regulated by my dad, right? How many had a parent who regulated the phone, when you could talk and how long you could be on it? Yeah.
And party lines.
You could party lines, yes, which is true. That doesn't mean you were having a good time and then your neighbor shared the same line with you. Okay, which is true, right? So you say that, it gets me back to, I just remember all those things that you dealt with back then. But things are different now. The stimuli is much different. When we would communicate with somebody, it would take weeks. I would write a letter and mail it to somebody, and then they would have to respond, and it would take weeks before you would actually get a reply. And now, when do we expect information? Like right now. And the problem is that the vast majority of that information is a positive or negative. It's negative. And so even more importantly today than ever before in the history of humankind, it is important we pay attention to what we are listening to, what we are reading, what we are watching, and the people we are associating with. You've heard this statement before. If you were to take the incomes of the 5 people you most spend time with, add that together and divide it by 5, that is likely a great approximation of your what? Of your income. Well, I would venture to say that if you would take the mindset of those 5 people you spend time with and average that together, then that would be an indication of your mindset. People you participate with, or rather associate with, exceptionally important. So those 2 things, participation and association, built on clarity and integrity. Integrity of process, integrity of standards, clarity of what you want, who you want to become. Now, again, none of that is easy, but in my opinion, it beats the what? Beats the alternative. Because the alternative is, I don't have any control and I simply have to wait until things what? Get better. And here's the truth. The fact is, the vast majority of the time, things aren't going to what? They're just simply going to change. So I think that's good news. The good news is that all of that's within my control. And what isn't within my control, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because the thing that is most important is not what happens to me or around me, but rather in terms of a positive mindset, what happens for me and how I respond to that. Yes or yes?
Yes.
So I was just finished with this game. So I just want you to think about this. What I've really tried to do over the last decade plus is George and I started Everest, and I had to become more because you demanded that, because there was no way I was going to be able to do what you needed me to do or demanded of me, being who I was. So what I made certain that I did every single day is I recognized that today started when? Last night, and I bookend my day. So every night before I go to bed, I read, watch, or listen to something that is positive. And when I get up in the morning, I do the same exact thing. And I know that that seems really simple. It's like, really, does that make a difference? I can tell you, yes, it does. And if you're not doing that, start doing it. If you are doing it, congratulations, and do more of it. Because the single most important conversation that any human being can ever have with themselves is the conversation with themselves. And when you control that and you make certain that that is a great, positive, empowering conversation, you become more resourceful. And it does not matter how the world is falling apart in so many different ways, as long as you know where you are and you're centered in terms of who you are, what you want, what your standards are, and what you have to do to succeed. I can tell you, all bets off, you're going to succeed, period. And we're in a great situation right now. Do you want to know why I say yes?
Yes.
Because your competition is becoming less in numbers and less in mindset. Those are good things. So when your competition becomes fewer in numbers and fewer in their mindset, becoming less resilient, they become more panicked, less confident. That spells good outcomes for you. Why? Because you don't take the same approach that they do. You're proactive. You're not reactive. You're like a first responder instead of a first reactor. And there's a dramatic difference. Fair enough?
Yes.
Thoughts, questions?
I have some
Yes.
things that have come to mind.
Yeah.
Again, that fortune cookie that I always bring to mind, and it's my mantra in my head. Losers focus on the penalties of failure. Winners focus on the rewards of success.
Yeah, I love that.
That's what keeps coming to me when we listen. And then the other thing is all of the messages stem from the Bible.
Mhm.
That, like what she had mentioned to you.
Right.
I have I'm a big fan of little messages around my house, whatever I'm doing. And I have the ask, seek, and knock. Asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find, knocking it will be opened unto you.
Yeah.
Around my house in different places. And my little grandson, he was only 10, he's now 21. He read that because he could read. He goes, Grandma, and he hits me. Is that true? And like, I had to stop and think. I'm like, what is he really asking? Like, he wants a new bike, he wants something, you know,
Right.
he's thinking, and I'm like, yeah, it is true. And he just looked at me and smiled.
That
And
is
he
awesome.
still comes to my house now and he goes, I remember that.
Really? How old is he now?
21.
That's cool.
And it's still there.
You know, that raises a good point. The way in which we conduct ourselves and the things that we, believe in and things we focus on have a great impact on those around us, especially kids. I remember one time you probably remember the story, I've told it several times before, but taking my son Jack to a Bees game, and we left the game early, and as we were driving away, do you remember what he said? Why did we leave early? Yeah, why did we leave early? When you sign up, you're supposed to what?
Stay.
You're supposed to stay, you're supposed to finish it. And it floored me, because that That was a message that my kids heard over and over again from Jim Rohn, because when we were in the car, I would play Jim, and that was one of his messages. When you sign up, you what?
Finish.
You finish, you stay.
Did you go
Yeah.
back?
Because we had his sister's event to go to at school, but yeah.
I have to share one more thing. I am very blessed and I get emotional that I just have a positive mindset. And I watched a lot of different positive things when I was younger because I needed to survive. And I would always talk to my kids about attitude and like 90, I mean, they weren't even old enough to understand percentages.
Right.
90%, the majority of everything you do is how you think. And I'd always tell them that if you skin your knee or you do this or that or the other, you can pick yourself up and you're okay. And they were just little and they were out and they were on their skateboard. And I was out in the yard working, and the little one, they're only 2.5 years apart. And one of them fell down and the other one goes, "You can do it. You know it's me." And I'm like,
Yeah.
and they both they have different strengths, but they are still positive and they're very giving. And
Yeah.
I just always think, oh, I am so grateful that I have been blessed, because I know so many people that are so negative, and it makes me sad for them. And
It is sad.
so many people are negative about negative people. And I'm like, hurt people. They need us
Yep.
more than the positive people.
Absolutely.
We can make a little difference. It doesn't mean we have to hang with them all the time, but when we are with them,
Shine on.
but I always remember that one, when the little ones did that, and I didn't even go and say anything. I just like sat there and smiled and went,
Yeah.
they get it. And my grandson, he was complaining about driving his truck and having a flat tire. I said, guess what? You're blessed that you have a vehicle to drive. You drive a car, you're gonna have a flat tire, dude.
Yep.
And he just went,
So it
yeah,
is.
you're right.
It's all about perspective, isn't it? Yep. Yeah, very cool. All right, well, let's finish up some closing affirmation. Great job on being here. Great way to start the week. Good to see all of you. Including you.